Tonight there is nothing you need to do. Nothing to solve. Nothing to remember. This is not a warning. And it is not a story that requires attention. It is a quiet record. Across the universe, long before humanity learned how to listen properly, civilizations rose beneath unfamiliar stars. They built cities. They mapped their skies. They sent signals outward, not knowing whether anyone would ever hear them. Most were never violent. Most were never conquered. They did not fall in fire or chaos. They simply faded. Their machines continued working. Their satellites continued to orbit. Their archives remained intact, long after there was no one left to read them. Tonight we will remember some of them. Not to mourn. Not to speculate. Only to acknowledge that they existed. As you listen, you do not need to stay awake. If your thoughts drift, that is fine. If the details blur together, that is expected. This record will continue. Whether you are listening or not. The cities of Kepri 9. The first civilization existed in a quiet binary star system, far from any major trade routes. The primary star was small and steady, producing a soft amber light. The secondary star was distant, contributing little more than a faint shimmer in the sky. The planet itself was known, by later archivists, as Kepri 9. It was a world of shallow seas and wide continental shelves. There were no extreme storms. No violent tectonics. No long winters. Life there evolved slowly, patiently. The inhabitants of Kepri 9 were not physically imposing. They were slender, low-energy beings adapted to long lifespans and minimal exertion. They did not value speed. They valued continuity. Their cities were built close to the water, not towering upward, but spreading outward in gentle arcs. Buildings were low and wide, designed to last centuries without modification. There was no concept of rush. Daily life moved according to light cycles and tidal rhythms. Work was communal, unhurried, and rarely specialized. Most citizens learned several disciplines over the course of their lives, changing roles as interest shifted. Technology developed in quiet increments. Rather than machines that replaced labor, they built systems that assisted presence. Transportation was slow and nearly silent. Energy was drawn from thermal gradients beneath the seas. There were no vehicles designed for speed. Communication relied heavily on proximity. Public gathering spaces were common, designed to encourage long periods of shared silence. Their records suggest they believed constant stimulation weakened the mind. For thousands of years, their civilization remained unchanged. Not stagnant, simply complete. Eventually they reached the stars, not through ambition but curiosity. Their probes were small and durable, designed to operate indefinitely. They were not equipped with weapons. They carried archives, art, and recordings of ambient planetary sounds. Then the quiet began. There is no record of war. No evidence of ecological collapse. No sudden extinction event. Population numbers slowly declined over several centuries. Birth rates decreased. Lifespans remained long. Their final records speak of a collective sense of fulfillment. They had built what they intended to build. They had seen what they wished to see. One by one their cities emptied. Today Kepri 9 still orbits its stars. The seas still rise and fall. The cities remain intact, preserved by the same gentle climate that once nurtured them. Their probes continue to drift between stars, still transmitting. O1 is waiting to receive the ring archives of Solen. The second civilization formed around a single blue-white star, brighter than most. Rather than settling planets, they built rings. Massive orbital structures, positioned carefully at stable distances, circling their star in slow, deliberate paths. Each ring was an archive. Solen, as the system would later be catalogued, had few naturally habitable worlds. Instead of terraforming, its inhabitants chose permanence over adaptation. The rings were constructed from layered materials designed to resist decay. They did not house industry. They housed memory. Each ring stored knowledge related to a single discipline. One ring preserved mathematics and logic. Another held art, music, and sensory recordings. Another contained philosophy, ethics, and recorded debates. Travel between rings was infrequent and intentional. Visitors were expected to remain for long periods, absorbing information rather than collecting it. Life aboard the rings was quiet and ordered. Lighting was constant and soft. There were no days or nights. Time was measured in rotational cycles. The inhabitants believed fluctuation distracted from understanding. Children were raised communally and educated slowly. There were no deadlines. Learning was expected to take decades. Their technology was advanced but unobtrusive. Interfaces responded to minimal gestures. Machines rarely produced sound. Even their propulsion systems emitted little more than a low vibration. They believed noise implied inefficiency. For a long time the rings expanded. New archives were added as knowledge deepened. Records show no internal conflict. Then expansion stopped. No more rings were constructed. No explanation is given. Maintenance systems continued functioning, but population numbers plateaued, then declined. The final recorded message from Solen's archivists is brief. It states only that knowledge had reached a state of completeness. No catastrophe followed. Life aboard the rings simply ended. Today the rings still orbit their star. Automated systems still adjust their trajectories. Archives remain intact. Occasionally, a ring broadcasts a signal, a quiet summary of its contents, hoping someone somewhere might still be listening. The tidal cities of Viral. The third civilization lived on a world shaped almost entirely by water. Viral was a moon, not a planet, orbiting a massive gas giant. Its surface was covered by deep oceans, interrupted only by chains of floating landmasses. The tides were strong but predictable. Entire cities rose and fell with the water. The inhabitants evolved to live in constant motion. Buildings were flexible, designed to bend rather than resist. No structure was meant to be permanent. Their philosophy centered on adaptation, not preservation. Daily life was rhythmic. Work periods followed tidal cycles. Rest came during calm waters. There were no strict schedules. Their technology was biological in nature. Instead of machines, they cultivated living systems. Transportation relied on buoyant organisms that responded to gentle guidance. Energy came from thermal differences beneath the ocean floor. There was no currency. Resources were shared according to need and season. Scarcity was treated as a temporary condition, not a crisis. The people of Viral did not record history in written form. They stored memory in song. Low-frequency vocalizations carried information across long distances underwater. Entire genealogies were preserved in harmonic sequences. When a singer died, their knowledge was absorbed into communal compositions. As centuries passed, the oceans changed. The gas giant's orbit shifted slightly, altering gravitational forces. Tides became stronger. Floating cities required constant adjustment. Rather than resist the change, the inhabitants adapted again. They dismantled their cities gradually, allowing structures to sink. One by one, the floating platforms disappeared beneath the waves. The final singers recorded a complete harmonic archive, then ceased. Viral is now an empty ocean. No structures remain on the surface. But deep beneath the waves, sound still travels. Sensors occasionally detect faint harmonic patterns. Echoes of songs no one remembers how to sing. The silent engineers of Halcyon Drift. The fourth civilization did not settle a star system. They lived between them. Halcyon Drift was a region of interstellar space where gravity currents flowed in slow, predictable patterns. Invisible pathways formed by the motion of distant stars and dark matter concentrations. Most species avoided the drift. Navigation there was difficult. Sensors behaved unpredictably. But this civilization learned to read the currents. They constructed habitats that floated freely, never anchored to any planet or star. Their structures were elongated and symmetrical, designed to remain stable while drifting endlessly. They believed attachment led to fragility. Life aboard the habitats was minimalistic. There were no private quarters. Living spaces were shared and quiet. Possessions were few and carefully chosen. Their society valued maintenance over creation. They did not invent new technologies often. Instead, they perfected existing systems until failure was nearly impossible. Some of their machines operated continuously for tens of thousands of years. Their primary role in the galaxy was subtle. They repaired damaged probes. They stabilized failing satellites. They corrected orbits that threatened collapse. Rarely seen. Rarely acknowledged. Communication among them was sparse. Messages were brief and functional. There was no recorded art. No literature. Archivists later speculated that their entire culture was an expression of balance. Eventually, fewer habitats were observed. Drift patterns changed. Energy costs increased. Rather than adapt again, the engineers reduced their numbers. Habitats were powered down one by one. The final recorded transmission from Halcyon Drift was a systems report. It confirmed all remaining structures were stable. Then a silence. Some habitats still drift today. Lights off. Systems dormant. Perfectly intact. Waiting for no one. The garden world of Irinder. The final civilization lived on a single, temperate world orbiting a red dwarf star. Irinder was rich with plant life. Forests covered most of the surface. Bioluminescent flora glowed softly at night, illuminating paths and waterways. The inhabitants evolved alongside this ecosystem rather than shaping it. There were no cities. Communities were grown, not built. Living spaces were integrated into trees and stone formations. Structures were temporary, allowed to decay naturally. Technology was almost invisible. Energy was harvested passively through photosynthetic networks. Tools were organic and biodegradable. There was no concept of ownership over land. Everything was shared. Their culture centered on stewardship. Each generation was taught that their role was not to advance, but to preserve balance. Records were stored in living archives. Plants engineered to encode information in their growth patterns. When a plant died, its knowledge returned to the soil. Over time, their population stabilized at a low number. They did not expand beyond their world. They did not seek the stars. Eventually, the red dwarf star began to dim. The process was slow, predictable. The inhabitants prepared calmly. They seeded the planet with resilient lifeforms designed to survive colder conditions. Then, gradually they stopped reproducing. Their final act was ensuring the world would continue without them. Today, Irinder remains alive. Forests still glow faintly beneath the red sky. No intelligent life remains. Only balance. These civilizations are not warnings. They are not lessons. They are simply records. Evidence that intelligence does not always seek dominance. That progress does not always require expansion. That endings do not always arrive in fire. Some civilizations complete themselves. Some choose silence. Some leave nothing behind except quiet systems, drifting structures, or living worlds that no longer remember their creators. As you rest, there is nothing you need to carry with you. The universe will continue to turn. Stars will burn and fade. Signals will drift unanswered. And somewhere, far beyond our reach, the remnants of forgotten civilizations will remain. Patient, quiet, and undisturbed. You are safe. You can let go now. The record is complete.